Good morning, or whatever time of the day you're viewing this. Hello, and welcome to the Wellness Agents. Thriving in a changing world, and there is always more to learn, is what we're about. I'm Karen.
I'm
And
Sarah. And today we're talking about restorative yoga. So we thought we'd have a discussion because I've actually been intensely using restorative yoga probably for the last 3 months. And the results have been quite astounding. And Karen and I, over these winter months where we usually go walking 3 mornings a week, we've actually been meeting and doing the restorative instead of the walking. And when I've gone from, so I didn't really do much other activity. And then when I went back to doing some different sorts of yoga, I just noticed that I hadn't lost anything in not doing it regularly. So doing the restorative actually maintained, if not increased my strength, definitely increased my flexibility. So I was able to get into some different shapes that I wouldn't normally have got into. So I just think it's amazing. This intensive exploration has been really quite valuable.
also, what I like is that I had a niggly pain just down through effectively the mid deltoid that I'd never remembered to actually ask someone to target it because it was only if I did a particular action, I'd notice it and it would grab me. It'd be, oh, but it wasn't stopping me from doing pretty well everything I usually do. And so I'd forget to, when I was getting some sort of help for myself, I'd forget to mention it because it wasn't, if I'm just like now, couldn't feel it.
Yeah.
And I've noticed through what we've been doing that I can't say it's gone, but it's nowhere near the gasp of breath when you take the joint in a particular direction. It's almost gone, but I'm really happy with that because that was an unintended consequence. A side effect of doing yoga therapy is I'm more comfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think what one of the things that prompted us, wasn't it, that we did this restorative some time ago as a series of classes, and you were able to get into certain positions. And then when we came back to it sometime later, you weren't. There was a position that you weren't. And it's almost like if you don't use it, you lose it. And so
Totally.
easily you could accept that, oh, well, the general consensus is that, you know, we're getting older, you won't be as flexible as you were. And I really want to challenge that because not necessarily the case. You can do a lot to maintain and increase flexibility.
Because this whole business of aging and losing abilities, going back to my nursing days when I was in general practice, I used to do the over 75s health check, which was this beautiful, very thorough, wasn't a system we didn't look at in the point of through asking questions, you know, like, do you have difficulty doing this? And it's pretty well to make sure if they're needing services, they're getting them. And anyway, I had this lady, I'm sure she was in her 90s, but if she wasn't in her 90s, she was definitely in late 80s, still got down on her kitchen floor every morning, hooking her toes under the cupboards and doing 10 sit-ups. And I went, oh my God.
Yep, use it or lose it. Like,
Yeah.
and take every
So
opportunity.
what that told me is like she could get down on the floor, she could get back off the floor. She looked amazing. She wasn't actually on any medications, which probably, you know, spoke for a lot of her abilities. And it was like, in my head, I go, I wouldn't like to do 10 sit-ups. I'd certainly know about it the next morning when my tummy hurt so much.
Yeah, that's the other thing, isn't it? Restorative yoga is quite specialized, and you do use props. You do have your bolsters and your blankets and your blocks, and you do really drape yourself into different shapes and positions over these things, allowing the body to gently open. So there is a bit of a dedicated time needed to put aside for it, but the benefits are so valuable that I think it's got to be part of everyone's overall program. You know, we need a balanced program to keep us fit and healthy, and restorative certainly has a place because it's that gentle opening, I think, that takes place when you say we spend 10 minutes draped over a bolster and the whole front of your body's open. It's not a position that you normally would take, especially when we're really affected by too much sitting. So if you're driving a lot, you're sitting in the car. If you're at the computer on the desk, you're sitting. So to try and put the body in some of those opposite shapes, and then to give time for that connective tissue, all that fascial network to open, you actually need to stay there, and then to add the breath in to be able to sort of send the breath into those tight places. It's not like we get in there and wrench and pull, but the gravity, natural body weight of just being over those props and then sending the breath in has the most amazing power to really transform on many layers, doesn't it?
You
Very
made me
transformative.
remember that, like, again, going back to when we first started replacing the walking for doing the yoga, there's one pose where you're lying on the floor but your elbows are up on the bolster, and so you're getting quite an arched back without
The gentle back bend. Yeah, it's a back bend.
the
Yeah.
gentle back bend. Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, I could, when we started, I could possibly hold it for a minute before it was too painful.
Mm.
And then she tells you, you know, like, change your position sort of thing to ease off. But now I can hold it, and it's not that I don't get some niggles, but they're the niggles that say, you don't usually do this on a daily basis, because we're doing it 3 times a week now, but it really settles in, and now I can hold it for the whole time. And it's
Mm.
like, pain is good because it does say, hey, something's not right, but it's getting to know your body. Is this the pain I sit with and breathe into, or is this the pain that says, stop what you're doing, you're going to hurt yourself
Yes,
further?
yes, yeah. And that's getting to know yourself, isn't it? And I think restorative is another benefit of it, is that it does take you deeper into layers of your being for you to get to know yourself.
Yeah,
And even that, like that sort of appreciation of pain, and what is this pain, and how far can I push it? And also the same with the breath. It's almost like, you know, the breath
mm,
is an automatic process. So our autonomic nervous system breathes for us, but generally people don't breathe very deeply. And
yeah,
if you are used to shallow breathing, then what can happen is you get this reset of your autonomic nervous system that resets you to that being your normal. And then it's
yes,
really hard to start to breathe more deeply because it's painful. It actually can be painful because, one, you could have, all those breathing muscles have become a bit tight from not being used. And two, breath work moves stuck emotional patterns through the body as well. So there's there's the painful emotional sense, but there's also the physical sense of tightness. Oh, I haven't used these muscles for a while. So restorative is a
yeah.
nice, gentle way of gently, you know, stretching, physically stretching, because some of the positions you get in, the lungs are actually being stretched. And then you can begin to just send the breath in and reset. It's like we have to retrain. And I'd say that most people probably are not breathing to their full capacity
I
and
agree
therefore
with that.
not getting the benefit. So that's one big thing. But also, we've got this whole stress pandemic, and restorative really is the antidote to our stressful lives. It's almost like where we've got the stress response, restorative yoga can come in and bring in that relaxation response, starting to undo all those holding patterns. And we don't even know we've got them. And it's not until, a bit like you said with your back, Karen, the layers begin to let go, and then it's like, oh, I didn't know that was there, and then another layer lets go, and then, oh, now we're into this. So it's really multi-layered, but benefits are huge, far-reaching. Mm.
Well, it's also like, with the twists that you take us through in our class, how if I wanted to twist to look behind me, start from the hips and make the spine spiral up, rather than using your shoulders and then it blocking midway by that whole. But I also like the way, if we are doing any kind of a stretch, that you draw our attention away from what might be going, "Ooh, that hurts a bit," stretching hamstrings. I can. But also that where else are you feeling it? And like, so you could be pointing your toes and then like flex and extending your feet, but you're actually feeling it right up past your hips.
Yes, yeah. But you don't notice until you're asked to notice, do you?
That's right.
Yeah, yeah.
And then if something is hurting, because I'm really working, because I do have a niggly lower back, I'm really working on trying to get my hamstrings a little bit gentler. And so they tell me they're not happy when I'm doing those sort of stretches. But then to breathe into that, and that's a technique you've taught for a long time, is that when it feels like, you're challenging a muscle, and you certainly don't want to tear anything or, cause yourself an injury, but it's really interesting when you imagine that when you breathe in, you're taking that breath to that point that's not happy. It can ease it somewhat. And then sometimes it just does actually, no, I've got to ease up here now, and you ease up and don't push it too far.
Yeah.
But when you were talking about how the autonomic nervous system, if it's used to you breathing shallowly, it thinks, oh, that's obviously how we're going to do it now.
Yeah.
It does the same with your blood pressure. And so people that have got high blood pressure, if they don't give themselves a release valve of something like meditation and yoga or other, Tai Chi, Qigong, or those sorts.
Yeah.
If you don't have an off switch for your stress levels, that's why our nervous system says, oh, obviously we've got to operate at 150 on 90 or 160 on 110 or something, because you actually haven't given your body a chance to go, wind it back.
Yeah, wind it back. Yeah, so it becomes its new normal. And that is so common. And that's why we're seeing the results of that sort of chronic stress then starts presenting in stress-related diseases. And look at those now, we've got a plethora of stress-related diseases showing up.
Absolutely. And like, it's the only claim I feel that kinesiology can make, is that you will feel less stressed when you leave. But, I think it's a bold statement to say I'm going to eliminate all your pain, or I'm going to do this, that, and the other. But I will have a positive impact on your stress. But the movement that comes, and it's gentle movement, it's like you don't feel that you're going to be running marathons if you're doing restorative yoga, because a lot of it is get into position and then hold it.
Yeah, and it's all on the floor, lying down.
And it's got its own relaxation within that, because with the exercise that I found I couldn't do after having a break from doing it and then going back into it, it was now just relax into this position. I thought, are they kidding? This is not comfortable. But now I do. Now I do get into that position, and the body just goes, oh, okay, we're going to be sitting. We're going to be here for a bit.
Yeah.
And relax into it. But when I first started, it wasn't quite like that. But you just build it up until you can. And you use the props to. So when I first started with this more recent run, I used more props because I couldn't get into the position I used to be able to get into. And now I've gone back to what I used to be able to do. but it really was a good slap across the face. Like, don't use, oh, well, I'm a year older. Well, yeah,
Yes.
that's
Yeah.
true. I'm a year
Yeah.
older,
Yeah.
but does that mean I shouldn't be able to do it?
Yeah. Yeah. And look what the body's capable of, because now you can do it back.
Yeah.
You've got it back again. So, and the other thing we were going to quickly mention before we finish is not to be afraid of the thought of being on the floor if you are afraid that you won't be able to get up off the floor,
Yeah.
because there are many ways to get up off the floor. So when you're down there, one benefit, you can't fall any further. So there's no risk of falling while you're down there, but getting back by just, having a chair nearby or something that you doing it near the couch or something, rolling onto your belly and then getting onto all fours and then just coming up, slowly, just come up slowly. And that's the other key, is come up really slowly after being on the floor for a while, because your blood pressure's, going to adjust as you move back onto that upright position. So there's many ways. So don't be put off if you think, oh, if I get down there, I'll never get back up. Sort of think about that before you go down. If you're doing this at home using recordings or something, maybe place yourself near your sofa or have a sturdy chair near you or a stool or something that you can pull up on. But otherwise, I think you'll find that, once the body's spent an hour or so working, you'll be surprised at what you will be able to do. And getting onto all fours and then just coming up very slowly, kneeling, and then just pulling up on something. There's many ways to get yourself back off the floor. Is there any other way you would suggest, Karen?
No, that made sense, but it's at the end of the day, we want you getting stronger. That
Yeah.
fear of being on the floor isn't. It's like, what am I doing down here? It's not that we want you, because you think like gardening. If you can't get down on the ground, how are you going to garden? And like, I've not got many green fingers or thumbs in my, but I like. There are times where you see, oh, that's a prickle. I want to be able to, get that out.
Yeah.
You don't want to be. My mum was a great faller. She used to fall all the time, but she never fought the fall. She'd roll into it and then wait for a neighbour to be walking past to help her up. But it's a pity she never learned how to kind of get onto all fours. And I mean, if she was in the house and like, she never injured herself, she did a few falls, she would know to get herself to furniture to pull herself up. And she was at that stage on her own. And so if she was in the house, she either had to crawl to a telephone to call someone in, or else she was able to manage. But the strength that, it's like you noticed when you were doing your other yoga, Sarah, that you hadn't lost what you would, and yet you hadn't worked it directly.
No. And yet, it was amazing. The inner strength, the flexibility is profound if you do a balanced restorative program. So I think can't really recommend it enough to be part of everybody's practice, really. Yeah, sure. So I'll put some links below here so that you can know where you can access it. But otherwise, we just wanted to have a discussion around the value and benefits of it, and not to be put off giving it a go if you get the opportunity.
Totally. All right.
End, I think. So thank you for being here. Click the like button if you like us and help us grow this channel. And we'll be back again soon with another topic, and acknowledging that there is always more to learn. It's like we're both learners and avid seekers. So we just like exploring, acknowledging there's always more to learn. What's new today isn't going to be relevant tomorrow. And we've got to remain very open-minded and curious at all times. So be curious like a cat.
Thanks, Sarah.
Bye.
Bye.
This content is created for informational purposes only. Always seek the guidance of a qualified health professional with any questions you may have regarding your personal health.